Morning, we're learning as a schos for shlema filana chaya basar. So we had seen our Mishnah on Daf Nun Aleph Amud Beis. We said, what happens if you have something called the Chavitin Kohen Gadol, Chavite Kohen Gadol, which was a mincha that was brought by the Kohen Gadol himself twice a day. We talked about what happens if there's no Kohen Gadol, he dies, something happens, and you don't appoint another. So what happens with the Chavitin? The Mishnah is assuming that they have to be brought, even though they're supposed to be brought by the Kohen Gadol individually. Even if there's no Kohen Gadol, it has to be brought. So then we had a machlokes in the Mishnah. First of all, two things. First of all, who pays for the replacement Chavitin? Obviously, the Kohen Gadol himself pays for it under normal circumstances, but there's no Kohen Gadol who pays for it. So we said two shittas. Rav Shimon says that the tzibur pays for it. You go to the lishka, you take from the machzas hashekel, or we'll see there's other possibilities, but you collect money, you take from the tzibur's money. Yehuda says no, you get from the yarshim of the Kohen Gadol. He was the one who's really supposed to pay for it. He's not there, so we get the yarshim to do it instead.
So Kohen Gadol had to sponsor it every single day.
Yeah.
And to be rich.
It was. I mean, the truth is, the Gemara is going to say that it was expensive proposition. I don't know why it just flour, not an animal. Maybe you had to. He was basically sponsoring. Yeah.
Those days, yeah.
Yeah, people did, but it wasn't like you go to Walmart and you buy a loaf of bread or you buy silas.
No. Yeah. People are living paycheck to paycheck, right?
I think we saw that what was it that made a person rich? Was it the Chavitin? I think we just saw in like the previous summer that
something to do with the lechem.
Right. So I think it was the lechem haponim. Right. So everyone was always eager to pay for it because they knew it would get paid back. They would make more money. So yeah. So that was the first question in the Mishnah. Who pays for the replacement Chavitin? And then we say at the end of the Mishnah, Shlema Hoysa Kreva. It means normally the Chavitin was divided up into, it was a full Isaran, half an Isaran in the morning and half of an Isaran at night. But we say with this replacement, it was brought, and we if you remember, we said that the Kohen Gadol would bring it all at one time and then divide it in half Isaran in the morning and half at night. But this was Shlema Hoysa Kreva, it was brought as a whole Isaran. So we're going to discuss what that means, Shlema Hoysa Kreva. So we're about 14 lines up from the bottom. The Gemara says, "V'savar of Shimon mishal tziba de'araisa." So we had just brought all the psukim that bolster the two stadim, right? We had the machlokes and the Mishnah between Rav Shimon and Rav Yehuda, whether it comes from Yarshim or it comes from the tzibur. We brought psukim. Rav Shimon said that it comes from the tzibur, and he says chak olam. That tells you that olam means the olam. The Klal Yisrael has to pay for it. So we see from a pasuk that the tzibur pays for it if there's no Kohen Gadol. But obviously, if you're learning from a pasuk, that means it's a deraisa. Is it a din deraisa that it gets paid for by the tzibur and not the yarshim? So the Gemara asks, is it true that this is a deraisa that it comes from the tzibur of Hatan Amar Shimon? Shiva dvar miskinu bezdin. There were 7 things that bezdin were masakin. And he's going to go through the Gemara is going to bring from the Mishnah a few of the things that Rav Shimon mentioned. So one of them was an Ovid Kechavim, a guy who sent his Ayla from a distant province. Good morning. We're in an Aleph on the base. So a guy who sent a carbon, believe it or not, a guy can send a carbon. And from this Gemara, it sounds like what he sends is an Ayla. It gets burnt. It's not eaten by anyone. So he sent an Ayla. If he sent along with it wine and flour for the nesachim that go along with the carbon, krevin mishaloi, then use that as the nesachim. Vim lav krevin mishal tzibur. If not, the chalmu misakin that the tzibur should pay for it.
He sent his wine, like Not officially, yeah, not.
Oh, so it is a problem, yeah. They asked this question. I don't remember where it is, but I know I've seen. Let me see if it's Rashi. No, it's not in here. It's probably over there on the bottom in the art scroll if you look. But right, it is a could be sent money. He sent money along with it to buy it. So that is one of the takanas that they made that the tzibur should pay. Utnai bezin hu kain gadol shemeis. Did I skip? V'chein gers. Sorry, I skipped. V'chein ger shemeis. V'iniach zvachim. The question that we're discussing is that Rav Shimon said in the Mishnah that if there's no kain gadol, tzibur pays for it. And then we brought the psukim on the Yomad that where the source for that was. It says chak olam, that's how we know. So that implies that this din that the tzibur pays for the chavitin if the kain gadol is not around is a deraisa. It's come from a pasuk. So we're asking now from this list of Rav Shimon said a bunch of Tanai Bezdin things that Bezdin were masakin. Obviously, that's going to be one of them. But now we're just listing other things that are not really relevant here. So we say another thing: Gersha Mace, a ger who died, and he left over a carbon that he'd made a neder to bring the carbon, and he separated the animal for it. So Yeshlin Nisachim Krav Mishalai. If he separated the Nisachim as well, or he separated money for the Nisachim, so those are use that to buy the Nisachim, the flour and the wine that come along with the carbon. Bimlav Krav Mishal Tzibur. But if he didn't separate it, so what happens to the nichsei ger, to the money of the ger? There's no yarshim of a ger. Well, we're talking about a ger who doesn't have yarshim, so you can't get from them. And his whatever he belongs to him becomes hefker, and anyone can take it. So there's no money to be taken to pay for these nesachim if he didn't separate it in advance. So we say v'mlav krev mishal tzibur, so that tzibur pays for the nesachim in order that the carbon should not be brought, should not be wasted because you don't have nesachim. And another thing, finally, the thing that's relevant to us is Tanai Bezdin, who another rule of Bezdin, Kain Gadol Shemeis, a Kain Gadol that died, Kain Acher Tachtav, and there's no replacement Kain Gadol. Shtei Minchasei Krevim Mishal Tzibur. His mincha, the mincha, comes from the tzibur. They were misakin that it should be paid for by the tzibur, the chavitin. So you see, not like our Gemara. Our Gemara had said it's a pasuk. It says chak olam, and now we're saying it's a rule of Bezdin. Bezdin made a takana. Rabavo explains no. It was both a pasuk and a Tanai Bezdin and a takana. There were two separate times that it was misukkah. The Raisa mid the tzibur. Mid the Raisa einachanam, we have a pasuk chak olam. It should come from the tzibur. Even the chazul, the kamitcha kalishka, since they saw that it was becoming too expensive, it was eating up all of the money that was collected from the machzas hashekel. It's very hard to understand how this happens, right? Because it's just bread, and they were from the lishka. They were bringing the tamid every day, which was a sheep, which you think is much more expensive. I guess the machzas hashekel was exactly enough for the other responsibilities. So all of a sudden, the Kohen Gadol died, you added on this whole extra expense, it would throw off the accounting. It was too much. It became too expensive for the tzibur to pay for it. So, takinu l'gabi yarshim. So they made a takana. You should collect it from the yarshim of the original Kohen Gadol. Even the chazu the kapashaiba, but since they saw that the yarshim would not pay the money, and then it just wouldn't get done. They were being lax about it. They said it's not really our job, and we don't want to spend all the money. They said our father, the Kohen Gadol, he at least got covered out of it. He was the Kohen Gadol. We're just getting an expense without any covered. So Okma Daraisa. So then they returned to make it for the Daraisa. So it was at one point it was Mishel Tzibur Midaraisa. Then they made it Takana Midarabban, and then they brought it back Midaraisa that they made a takana to do it from the Yarshim, and then they made a takana that it should be like it's supposed to be midaraisa from Mishal Tzibur. So it was originally from the pasuk, and then in the end it was a Tanai Bezdin when they had tried to give it to the Yarshim, that they put it back on the deraisa of Mishal Tzibur. Then we just continue with that Mishnah again with something that's not directly relevant to us. The para aduma. The rule is you're not allowed to use the para aduma. If you use the para aduma for any kind of work, you even rest on it, you ride on it for a minute, the para aduma is possible. And the Chacham also made a takana that you're not allowed to be moil, you're not allowed to be nana from anything that's kachim. They made a takana that if you benefit from the offer of the para aduma, it's not going to be me'ila. You're not going to be chayiv to pay the chaymish and all the takanas of what happens with me'ila when you benefit from kachim when you're not allowed to. Why did they have to make a takana that there's no me'ila? The Tanya Chatasi, it says about the paraduma. Chatasi, it's a chatas. Malamet shem moyelimbo. That tells you that there's a din me'ila on the offer of the chatas. But then it says he. It says it. Ba moyelim ba'afra ein moyelim. It says he. Only the animal is there me'ila, but not once you burn the animal, the paraduma, and you make it into offer, and then there's no more me'ila. Midaraisa, it's saying there's no me'ila. So why did we say that it's a Valparshla Yumayim Ba'afra, that it was a Tanai Bezdin, that the Bezdin was masakin it, was saying from he, tells you that there was no me'ila on the offer Midaraisa. Amar Ravashi again, Shnei Takanis Havoy. The same thing like we said, Legabi, the Chavite Kain Gadol, that there were two takanas, there's also two takanas on this as well. Deraisa ba moilin ba'afra ein moilin. Enachanami mideraisa. There is no me'ilin in the offer of the paradum. Even the chazud kamazal's liva, since they saw that once there was no din me'ila, they didn't have the heightened penalties for being moil, for being nena in the offer of the paraduma, people would make light of it. But ka'avdi minei lemichten, they would use it, they would take the offer and use it as a treatment for a wound. If someone, they'll put it on I guess that's one of the things they do. They put ash on a wound. So take the ash of the paraduma and use it on a wound. So gazer be me'ila. So with gazer, no, now we have to make that there is a din me'ila on it. You have to pay an extra chaimish. Even the chazu, the kaparshi, misafik, hadzayis. But then they said, oh, now that there's a din me'ila, the people were nervous, right? What is the main purpose of the paraduma? If someone comes tameh, they would spritz from the mechatas. They would take the offer of the paraduma with water, and they would spritz it on the person to be mitarim. So people started to get scared. I'm not 100% sure I became tameh. I just walked nearby. I'm not sure if I actually touched it. And they started to get scared. If they take the paraduma when they're not tameh, they'll be over a meila. So they started to be making on themselves and saying, I didn't really become tameh, so I'm not going to use the paraduma because the chama misak and it didn't meal on it. So then the okma deraisa, they took again away the iser of meila. So then that answers the stira. One place we say that meila is that there's no meila on the offer of midaraisa, and then one place we say it's a takanus chacham. Originally, it was einachanami midaraisa that there's no meila, but they were misakin that people were being mezalzel in it that there should be meila. But then in the end, they took away the takana, and that's the derabanan that they took away that there's no meila. Even though midaraisa there was no, they had been misakin. They took away the takana, they were misakin again that there's no meila. Tanraban, par helam davashot tzibur, the par that is brought when the tzibur follows the mistaken psak of the Sanhedrin. The Siri Avedis Kechavim. And specifically, if the Sanhedrin had paskin that some kind of Avedis Kechavim is mutter, and everyone followed that psak, so they bring a soyer, a goat, Betchila maglim lahem. This they would make when they had to bring such a carbon. They didn't take it from the lishka. this like whole blot is all concerned with the accounting of the lishka, like the money, which things. That was our mission discussed when you have these chavitim of a kohen gadol that died, and who does it come from the tzibur or not? So now we're discussing these paralim davashot tzibur and the sirah v'etzkechavim. Who pays for them? It's a tzibur thing, but it's not something that comes typically. I guess what happens is at the beginning of the year, they count up how much machzah shekel they counted, and they account for all the tmidim and all the musafim, and they spend all the money to buy these things. So they don't have extra money. So we have to so then when it comes an extra expense, something like a partial kohen gadol, or a chavite kohen gadol, a par v'sar shel yom kippurim, I'm sorry. I keep on saying, Param Davashal Tzibur, and the Sirah V'etzkechavim, which is an unexpected expense. They didn't expect it to happen. So we have a question, where does it come from? So according to Rabbi Yehuda, B'tchila Magvan Lahen, they would come make a new levy and go around to collect the money for it. Shimon Omer, B'trumas HaLishka Bayim. He says it comes from the regular, they had extra money left in the regular account, in the lishka, which is the room where they kept the monies. They had money for this also. We have a place where it says exactly the opposite. But Yehuda was the one who said it comes from the lishka, and Rav Shimon was the one who said they made a new fundraiser, a new raise it. Hi minayu achritas. So I want to ask which one is the last. I mean, we have two brises that they contradict each other as to who said what. Whichever brisa is the most recent one, that's the most trustworthy. We always say the last brisa is the one that was the final psak. So what did Rav Shimon say in the last one? What did Rabbi Yehuda say in the last one? Amuru Abanu Kamei de Rav Ashi, Lema Kamai Sachrita. I have a svara to say that the first way we said it, that Rabbi Yehuda says it comes from a new collection, and Rav Shimon says it comes from the regular collection. That we said, we see that Rav Shimon is chayish v'pshia, meaning in our Mishnah, we said if you didn't have a kohen gadol to bring the chavitin, Rav Shimon said it comes from the tzibur. And because we said if you would allow the reason was they had originally given it to the Yarshim, even though Midaraisa it comes from the tzibur, but they were giving it to the Yarshim. I'm sorry, we said that they were giving it to the Yarshim, but the Yarshim were not doing their part. They weren't providing it. We were chayshish. So therefore they were masakin. It should come from the tzibur. So l'chayra, the pshat that says over here also that it came from the tzibur, we'd be concerned that if they had to make a new collection, they wouldn't get enough money. So therefore, it has to come from the tzibur, just like we said in the Mishnah. Amalu Rav Ashi, afilu tem basraisa. You can even say the other pshat. Rav Shimon is not the one who says Mishal Tzibur. Rav Shimon is the one who say you make a new collection. Achrita kika chay afilu tem basraisa achrita. You can even say that the second pshat is the later one, the more trustworthy pshat, where Rav Shimon is the one who says that they made a new collection. Kika chay Rav Shimon lepshia. That which we said the gabi the chavitin, that we had to do it from the tzibur because we didn't trust the yarshim that they're going to pay their money. But most of the less bukapara bagava. That's a chavitin. They weren't getting anything out of bringing the chavitin. The chavitin were just an obligation, but it wasn't bringing kapara. So they were lax about it. The most of the isla kapara. But the parham davashal tzibur and the sirah v'etzkechavim, when they had done something wrong, and everyone knows that you have to get a kapara for it. Lechayish. This like bagava lechayish. We're not chayish that they're going to be lax about it because they want to get their kapara. Lechayish of Shimon lepshia. Shimon is not chayish. He would over there. He doesn't need it to come from the tzibur. It could come from the special collection. My havi Allah. Someone says so. We don't have a conclusive proof of what Rav Shimon holds and what Rabbi Yehuda holds. Amalei Rabbazuti l'Ravashi Toshma. Bring you a raya from Brayz Tanya. As Karbani lachmi li shai reach nichaychi tishmru lakav li b'moyad. The Torah says about the carbon tomid. It says it's Karbani lachmi my lechem liishay reich nichayach, and to be burnt as a reich nichayach. All these things are not necessary. So what is it coming to tell you? Divrei Reb Shimon. Bring from Reb Shimon, he learns that from this pasuk that it says extra words in the description of the Talmud. The Talmud, unlike the Chavitin, we know came from the Tzibur. So since these extra words are coming to be marba, that the Param Davashal Tzibur and the Sirius Avais Gechavim are going to be treated like the Talmud, that the money for it is going to come from the Lishkas, from the Tzibur. The Mishnah continues. So now we're going to move on to that last din in the Mishnah. Right? First we had the machlokes. When there was no Kohen Gadol, who pays for the chavitin, for these twice daily minchas, of where the Kohen Gadol would take an isaron in the morning, and he would divide it into two halves, and half he would be burned in the morning, and half he would burn it in the afternoon. We said that machlokes of who pays for that when there's no Kohen Gadol, and then we said Bishal Yarshin, and we say Ushlema Haisakreva, that it was brought as a full isaron, unlike the Kohen Gadol's, which was divided into halves, half in the morning and half in the day. This was a full isaron, but it's not clear what it means. What was a full isaron? Amar Chia Barabba, boy Rabbi Yochanan, Shlema Shachris Ushlema Ben Habayim. When we say Shlema Haisakreva, does that mean when there's no Kohen Gadol, you do a full isaron in the morning as well as a full isaron in the afternoon, instead of like the typical din of the chavitin where it's half in the morning and half in the afternoon? Well, maybe it means no, you only do it once a day, the full isaron in the morning, and you don't do the afternoons. Amar Rava, Tashma, Shmini b'chavitin. The brisa over there, I don't know if it's a brisa or a Mishnah. I think it's a Mishnah. A Mishnah says that it lists 13 different jobs that were allocated to the Kehanim every day. You bring the Talmud Shel Shachar, and you go bring the Ketairas, and you do this. And the eighth thing was to take the Chavitim from the Kohen Gadol and bring it onto the Mizbeach. And it was one in the morning and one in the afternoon. So the eighth Kohen got a job in the morning. The eighth, that means they had a separate list of Kehanim's jobs in the morning and the afternoon. So the eighth in the morning and the afternoon was the one who brought the Chavit. If, as we said, when there's no Kohen Gadol, there was no Chavitim brought in the afternoon. Instead of bringing a half in the morning and half in the afternoon, you brought everything in the morning. Sometimes you don't have the eighth Kohen appointed to have a job in the Chavitin. When there was the Kohen Gadol died and no one was appointed in his place, then there was no afternoon Chavitin. So you can't say as a rule that there's always, the eighth Kohen always has that job. I said this in front of Rav Yirmiyah in Eretz Yisrael. Amar Bavloi Tipshoi, the Bavliim who said this svara, that the Mishnah proves that it must be that the Chavitim were brought as a full isaron in the morning and in the afternoon, because otherwise we wouldn't count the eighth Kohen as doing the Chavitim. They're Tipshoyim, they're fools. Because they sit, the bubble is it's in a valley, so it's very dark. So they live in a dark place, so it's clouded their judgment, clouded their minds. Every time you hear like someone's arguing and learning, you see they're yelling at each other, you realize it's not a new thing. Amri Shmaitza, the Mechashcha. So therefore they said a shtickle Torah that's also dark, that they're not clearly thinking, they're not seeing things clearly. And I'll prove it to you. We said the seventh Kohen was assigned to bring the flour and for the Nesachim, and the ninth one was to bring the Yayin for the Nesachim of the Talmud. Well, it's not true. The Talmud is also sometimes not going to be brought that day. We learn that the mincha and the nesachim, the flour and the wine that comes along with the Talmud, can be delayed to the following day. So in a case where they delay it to the following day, you wouldn't have the assignment to the number 7 Kohen, and you wouldn't have the assignment to the number 9 Kohen. Right? This we said the chavitin was number 8, but number 7 was the wine from the Talmud. Number 9 was the silent. I'm sorry, the other way. 7 was the flour of the Talmud, and 9 was the wine of the Talmud. But sometimes they delayed it to the following day, and then therefore it would be a different kayin. The next day's kayin would do it. Ella the eloik tani. It's obvious for the fact that we say the 7th and the 9th for the mincha and the nesachim, that something that's the that's possible that they might bring the nesachim and the yain the following day. We don't discuss possibilities. We're saying about what the standard is. Hachanami di like tani. So you're saying that sometimes it will turn out that you only bring an isaron in the morning and not in the afternoon. That's only in the case where the Kohen Gadol died and no one was in his place. So we're not discussing non-standard procedures. We're saying what the standard procedure is. Amri Kamayu, I'm sorry, I skipped a line. Hadrua Kamedu Rava. They told Rava this objection to his svara. Amri, Mibishusan Amri Kamayu, Mitivusan Le Amri Kamayu. You know what? We said a shvacha svara. We tell them our bad, give our bad schayra to them, and we don't tell them our good stuff, and then they think that we're tipshayin. It's our fault. We haven't been saying good svaras. We have to give them the good Rebuch Bears, the good Shagasarias.
Rava was in the bubble.
Yeah. So he said, Taka wasn't a good svara. Hada Amar Rava. But then after mulling it over, Rava realized, we do have a good taina. Hani nami tivusanhi. There is a good svara to prove that they did have there was Isaron in the morning and Isaron in the afternoon. Amar Kra, Silas Mincha Tamid. The pasuk says that it's a Silas Mincha Tamid. Harei Lacha Kaminchas Tamidin. The Chavitin is described as Silas Mincha Tamid, which compares it to the Tamidin. Maya, which the Tamidin were brought the full amount in the morning, and in the afternoon there was no what do you call it? There's no varying. It was always consistent. So he says the pasuk itself is a raya. It's for a different reason, not the same original reason, but we do have a good svara to support it. So my havi Allah. So we see in the end, Rava sticks with his guns that it must be that the Tamid, the Chavitin, when there's no Kohen Gadol, was brought an Isar in the morning and Isar in the afternoon. But Rav Yirmiyah from Eretz Yisrael disagrees. Rav Nachman Yitzchak Toshma. The Tanya, Shlema Shachris, Ushlema Ben Ha'abayim. We have a brayso that says it was brought when there was no Kohen Gadol. You brought a full Isar in the morning and a full Isar in the afternoon, like Rava had said, not like Rav Yirmiyah. Okay, Amar Rav Yochanan. Pligba Abi Yosi ben Destoy Rabbanan. There's a machlokes about the levina. So we've been talking about till now to the saran, the flour that you bring as a chavitin. What the din is if there's no kohen gadol. Now we're going to talk about the levina. There was levina that also came with the chavitin. How is that brought? So the machlokes not with the kohen gadol who died. Rashi says, Pligiba b'chavite kohen gadol shaloimes. In a standard case of chavite kohen gadol. So, Abi Yossi ben Destoy Omer mafresh lo shnei kvatzim shalavayna. Kaimet shachos and kaimet ben abayim. In the morning, you take a full isaron and you divide it in half in the morning and half in the day. Since you have to have a kaimet of levina both in the morning and at night and in the afternoon, so you have to take in the morning, separate 2 levinas for each half of an isaron. The Rabbanan say, just like you divide the Saran in half, you just take 1 kaimitz of levina and you divide it in half for each part for the morning and the afternoon. But my become what's the machlekes about? Rabbi Yossi ben Destoy Savala, Ashkan Chatzi kaimitz the karv. Ashkan Chatzi kaimitz the karv. He said, I'm sorry. We never find that you ever bring a half a kaimitz of something. So you're bringing with the morning, according to you, the Rabbanan, you take 1 kaimitz and you divide it in half. You're doing something that you never find anywhere else, that you take a half a kaimitz and put it on. The Rabbanan Savi ask on Isar and the boy Shnei Kamatzim. And the Rabbanan say, no, really it's one big Isar in the morning. And you're saying to take 2 kaimsin for that Isar. Now, even though it gets divided up later, that's not really dividing it up. That's part of the same Isarin that's just brought in 2 sections. But you only need 1 kaimitz of Levina for it. Because you never bring that you have 2 kamatzim for a single Isar. Boy Rabbi Yochanan. So that's the machlokes Rabbi Yossi ben Destoi and the Rabbi Yossi ben Destoi and the Rabbah. Whether you need 1 or 2 kaimsim of Levina together with the chavitim of the Kohen Gadol. Boy Rabbi Yochanan, Kohen Gadol shemeis, v'lo mina acher tachta. What about our case, where the Kohen Gadol died and there was no one appointed in his place? L'Rabbanan, according to the Rabbanan, who say that you need according to Rabbanan, that say that you need to bring 1 kaimitz of Levina for the 2 halves. But we said in our Mishnah that it's kreva shlema, that you bring all the holy sarna at one time, and then you bring another one in the afternoon, at least according to Rava's psak. So what do you do with the Levina? We said that the Rabbanan say you divide up, you do 1 kaimitz of Levina, you do it in halves. But now you bring in a sar in the morning and a sar in the afternoon. Since you're doing silas in the morning and silas in the afternoon, you're also going to have to double the Levina to have 1 kaimitz in the morning and 1 kaimitz in the afternoon. Or maybe the Torah just said that the silas gets doubled. You have to bring a Isar and Shlema. But the Levina remains the same as it always is. And the Gemara says that you'll have a similar question with the Shemen. Right? There were three lugan of Shemen that came along with the Isar. The Shemen, Bein la'abi Yosi ben Destoi, or Bein la'Rabbanan Ma'al. Both according to Abi Yosi ben Destoi, who says that you do a full kaimitz of Levina in the morning and the afternoon. Or according to Rabbanan, you say you do a half of the Levina. What happens to the Shemen that comes along with the 3 lugan of Shemen? Amar Rabba, Tashma, Hey Kmatzin Hey. So I'll bring you a raya, Lagabi the Kmitza. So there's 5 different kaimsim that are brought. There are 5. He lists the kmitzas that come out that are mandated every day, not from a minchas nedava, but from the things that you have to do every day, from the Talmud and the chavitin. So and I guess maybe the Ketairis. Vim Isa zim in the mishkachas zayin. If you'll say you have to do a kaimitz in the morning and a kaimitz of Levina in the afternoon, so you can have, if there's no Kohen Gadol, you have an extra 2 kmitzas. So why do we say there's only hay? You sometimes have, if the Kohen Gadol dies, you have to do a full kaimitz with each Isar instead of just a half. So Gemara, the Eloi Tani. Again, that's only in the case of the Kohen Gadol died. We were only talking about the standard. We weren't talking about what happens if there's no Kohen Gadol. Yosef Rav Papa v'kamal ha'shmaitza. He's saying over this svart, Amalei Rav Yosef Bar Shammai Rav Papa v'malak kaimitz b'chutz. The ihava uktani. We mentioned, one of the comments that we mentioned is that you bring a kaimitz from somebody who brings the kaimitz outside of the azara. That's another example of a kaimitz that's brought in the list of the 5 kamatzim, and that's the ihava. That's only if someone brought it b'chutz, you're really supposed to bring it inside. So you see that we do mention things that are just potentials, not necessarily standard. Uktani, my haviala. So what's going to be the din with this levaya, with this extra kaimitz of levina? Do we do 2 separate full kamitzas, or do we do one kamitza half and half? And the shemen as well. Do we do 3 lugan with the Isaron in the morning and 3 lugan with the Isaron at night, or do we say it's a separate cheshbon and you just do 1.5 with each corner? Back to our brayso. So we said a Kohen Gadol that died and no one was appointed in his place. And we said we paskin like Rav Shimon that you do a full Isaron in the morning and a full Isaron at night. I'm sorry, not like Rav Shimon. What is it like Rava, right? Umafresh lo beis kmatzim. And it says also there that you mafresh 2 kmatzim of levayna, kaimet shachos, the kaimet ben abayim. So you see on the shaila of the levayna that you have to do a full levayna on each one. Umafresh lo shleisha lugan, lug umechza shachos, lug umechza ben abayim. But the shemen you divide in half. You do 1.5 in the morning and 1.5 at night. You don't do a full 3 lugan for the Yisrael. Money. So who is this like? Elaim Rabbanon. So this was a machlokes between the Rabbanon and Abba Yossi ben Distoi, whether the kaimitz is done, whether you do a full kaimitz in the morning and a full in the afternoon, or if you do half or you divide it in half. If so, according to Rabbanon, doesn't make any sense. Why would the shemen not be doubled? But the levayna, you're doing a full kaimitz of each one. It must be going like Abba Yossi ben Distoi, who says that the kaimitz, the din of a regular chavitin is that it has a full kaimitz with each one. It always needs 1 kaimitz in the morning and the afternoon. Then it makes sense. You always bring 2 kamatzim, and therefore the levayna is you're doing the standard. If you would be doubling it, it would be, according to Abba Yossi ben Distoi, it would be 2 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon. But we don't. So everything is left in its normal amount. You don't double it, other than the Isarin. What's that tomorrow? And we say, so we say from the fact that according to Abba Yossi ben Distoi, we don't double it. The same thing would be according to the Rabbanon. You're not going to double anything. Rabbi Yossi ben Distoi. Rabbi Yechon says Allah is like Rabbi Yossi ben Distoi, that normal chavita needs 1 kaimitz levain in the morning and 1 afternoon. Me, Rabbi Yechon and Hachi, Rabbi Yechon and Allah is Stam Mishnah. Utanan chamisha kamatzin hein. We had the Stam Mishnah that said chamisha kamatzin. Amaroi ninu v'ali b'der Rabbi Yechon. There's 2 shittas of what the shita of Rabbi Yechon is. One place he says Allah is like Stam Mishnah. Another place he paskins like Rabbi Yossi ben Distoi, even though he's connected the Stam Mishnah. Shkoyach.